Okay, guys, if you want to just pay attention, those who are interested. Okay, so I was asked to give a small talk on masking. Um, the masking of a straight line or a camouflage can make a big difference to the way a model looks. And there are various ways of doing it. And what I'm going to show you is not necessarily the best way, it's just the way I do it. So, like I said, if you've got suggestions or different ways of doing it, chip in while I'm busy talking. There's no problem with that. Most of you will be familiar with the standard Tamiya tape, okay? And the question was asked of me a few months ago: why should I spend money on Tamiya tape when I can just buy masking tape for so much cheaper? Okay, those who've used it will know. Okay, the Tamiya tape itself is sticky, but it's almost semi-sticky, so it doesn't leave any residue behind when you use it. Okay, also the edge is dead straight, whereas the edge of masking tape isn't. And masking tape is made from a much coarser fiber. So if you use masking tape to mask a straight edge, when you pull it off, you're not going to get a straight edge because the fibers on the edge of the tape come up with it and they give you microscopic little waves on the edge. Okay. The only bit of advice that I would say listen to very carefully today is do not use masking tape to try and get a straight edge on your models. Okay. You can use Tamiya tape to get that edge, and then lots of masking tape to cover out the rest, no problem at all if you want. But don't use masking tape to get a straight edge. Okay. There's a reason why professional painters don't use masking tape, because it's not great for getting straight edges. So most of you will be familiar with the Tamiya tape. It comes in different widths and thicknesses, as you know. The thicker Tamiya tape, which is really good for masking out bigger areas. We'll get into that just now. A lot of you will have seen, heard of, used, hopefully, the new Tamiya flexi tape. I have nothing to do with Tamiya whatsoever, but this stuff is literally the best modeling aid in the last 5 years. It is brilliant. It really is brilliant. The whole front end of this car, from the edge of the bonnet all the way around to the bottom, was masked with a single piece of this tape. It is superb. It curves absolutely beautifully. No kinks, no corners, no nothing. Okay. This one was, I think, a 2mm because of the curve, especially going around the corner of the fog light areas there. But again, you only use this to mask out the very edge. The rest of it you can use ordinary Tamiya tape, or you could use masking tape if you wanted. But I don't like the residue on the masking tape. But honestly, if you only buy one tool for yourself this year, buy some of this. This is actually a plastic tape. It's actually a same low tack, but it's a plastic tape that literally stretches, and it's fantastic. It really is. You know, I mean, I've said it before. Tamiya don't bring out crap generally. Yes, it costs money, but every now and again they come up with something that really changes the game, and this is that stuff. It's brilliant. It really is. I mean, to paint this curve, before I would have used this fine kabuki tape from Japan, but this also doesn't stretch the same way. It's very thin. This is 0.4 millimeters, which I would have used to do the edge, but it doesn't stretch the same. It doesn't give you that curve. If you look at the back of this I-8, the whole back end of this was masked out. It was a single piece of plastic. I honestly don't think it would have been anywhere near as clean as it is if I didn't use this. It really is superb, and that was the first time I used it on that model. Then, of course, I don't know how many of you have used this. This is really good as well. It's Tamiya tape, the normal Tamiya tape that is bonded to plastic. Okay, and this folds out to a 500 millimeter piece, which is really fantastic for, let's say, the nose of an airplane. You can use this around the edge of the nose, mask out with maybe this first, then use this around the edge, and the plastic covers the rest of your model behind it. It's really also good. Let me show you. So it's got tape on the edge, the normal Tamiya tape on the edge, and then this folds out quite far. So you can use that on the edge, like if you're painting the edge of this or the front of this, you could literally put it around there, and the plastic then covers up the rest of your model. It makes masking a hell of a lot quicker, especially for bigger models. Yeah. Okay. Again, you're not going to use it every day. You're not going to use miles and miles of it. So it's not cheap, but it's worth buying, definitely. Okay. It's also a Tamiya product, by the way. Then, of course, for really, really intricate, multi-contoured parts, like seat inserts, for example, on cars, and I'm sure we can think of 100 applications for aircraft or ships or tanks or anything. You can use bare metal foil as a masking agent. The beauty of that is you can get it into a small area, you can burnish it down, cut it out, paint over it, and then just take it off. Okay, bare metal foil is also quite low tack. So it works really well. I use a lot of bare metal foil on car interiors because of the fact that it's multi-contoured and multifaceted, and especially on seats when I'm doing a two-tone seat. It's a lot easier to paint the seats. These are both monotone seats, but the green Lamborghini I built, for example, you paint the seat green, you mask out the center of it with bare metal foil, which would be almost impossible to do with tape, and then paint the rest of it black, pull it off, and you've got a two-tone seat. Okay. Also, I've seen articles where guys use it on canopies. I personally haven't done it, but it makes sense because you can burnish it down. Bare metal foil picks up every little detail. So if you've got a canopy with a very soft frame detail, it will pick up all that detail, and you can then just trim it out, and you've got your own masking set. Works very well. And then, of course, you get dedicated masking sets. I think we're all aware there's many companies that do dedicated masking sets. It's basically, to me, a tape. It's called kabuki tape from Japan. It's basically the same stuff, low tack. It's just pre-cut, so you don't have to cut out your canopy mask. Again, there's varying qualities. Some of them I've heard don't fit very well. I've never heard anything bad about an Edward set or a HGW set, or most of the more sort of not the cheap options. You also get dedicated masking sets in vinyl. But my experience from vinyl is that it pulls away from the edges, especially on tight areas, curves. So if you curve it, when you put it down, if you're going to put it down and you're going to spray or paint immediately, that's fine. If you're going to put it down and leave it for a couple of hours, it tends to pull back a little bit. That's just my experience. So I stay away from vinyl masks. If it's a flat surface, it's fine. I know there's quite a few vinyl masks that people use for national markings, for example, stars and bars or British roundels or whatever. If it's on a flat surface, it's fine. It's as soon as you try and curve the vinyl. Okay. Then there's liquid mask. I personally like liquid mask, especially for complex little shapes on engine bays or interiors or whatever, because you can mask out the edge with some really fine tape, one of these two, and then you don't have to worry about filling everything in the back. You can just paint it on. Okay? The way to get it off is to just drop it in water. It does tend to, if you try and peel it off, you do end up with millions of little tiny flakes of paint coming off the surface that get everywhere, for sure. Generally, if you just drop that part in water, it dissolves quite nicely and almost sort of holds the shape and comes off. Yeah, so there's a few, there's a few liquid masks. Don't rule out liquid mask. It really is quite useful for especially small little areas. It does eventually. I don't think I've ever used the whole bottle. It does go off eventually, and you just give up on it. I've never found anything that makes it go back to liquid. So, okay. Then, if you're doing a camouflage or you want a soft edge, you don't want a hard edge, you can use blue tack. Okay, blue tack. Last stuff I bought from Builder's Warehouse. No, mica. Yeah. If you can't get blue tack, go to Crazy Store and look for silly putty in an egg. Okay. I don't think it's called silly putty. It's called something else. Is it called silly putty? It comes in a little plastic egg, and you. Yeah. Okay. The reason why you use that or you use blue tack and not Prestic is that Prestic is oil based, and if you put oil based obviously onto your paint, not so much on gloss paint, but especially on matte or semi-gloss, it leaves a residue behind. Especially matte paint. Okay. So if you want to do a soft edge, I think most of you have probably seen this before, but you roll out into a sausage, and the sausage can be whatever thickness you want. It's up to you. And if you were going to, obviously you would be a bit more careful than this, but you would mark it out carefully. You could work it around like that, and then if you spray straight onto that, to the top of that, you're going to end up with a very lightly feathered edge where it curves underneath. Okay. The trick there is not to spray underneath, because then you're going to get a hard edge. Okay. When you're spraying a hard edge like this, you should never actually, if you can help it, never spray into the tape. Always spray over or on top. Okay. Another trick that works really well on hard edges is you spray the first color, and you obviously always want to try and spray the lightest color if you can. It doesn't always work, but if you can. Mask it out, and then spray a very light coat of clear, with matte clear or semi-gloss clear, doesn't matter. Spray the coat of clear on first, and then spray your color. Okay. When you pull the masking off, the first layer to pull off is the first layer that on the tape is the layer that cracks. Okay? So if you've sprayed it in clear and you pull it off, it's the clear that cracks and not the color. So it gives you a much sharper edge. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It sounds dubious, I know. Give it a try, you'll be amazed. I also kind of like, yeah, okay. It really works. Because if you've got, that's exactly it. What you're doing is you're sealing it. So if you've got any bleed, your clear has bled through first, so you don't get color bleed. That's also an important thing, and we'll get onto that. We'll move on to that. If you've masked something out, when do you take off the masking? Okay. A lot of people I know leave it till the paint's hard, dry. Okay. The ideal time to take it off is the paint's touch dry but not cured. Because exactly what Kevin was saying, if you take it off when it's touch dry but not cured, when you pull it back, the edge of that edge is still soft and it almost self-heals itself, as opposed to being properly cured and then it cracks and you get flaking, or you can get flaking. So on a hard edge like that, what you can also do, like on a canopy, or a detail, a hard edge like this, once it's done, you can take a brand new blade and literally with the weight of the blade, just run along the edge of the masking. Just literally no pressure, just the weight of the knife with a brand new blade. And all you're doing is breaking the surface. So when you peel it off, you get that straight edge. Okay. If you shake like this, don't give it a go. Okay. But it does work. And you can use just with the weight of the knife, you can use the edge of the tape. Just you're literally just breaking the surface. You're not actually cutting. Okay. We talked about the ridging between the two. Okay, that's one of the reasons why you should never spray into the mask, because then you end up with buildup on the edge of the mask, which when you pull it off gives you a ridge. Okay. The other thing you can do is, so you always try and spray against the angle of the mask or directly from above, not to get too much buildup on the edge. Okay. It goes without saying, I suppose, that when you're painting a masked area, 3 or 4 light coats is much better than 1 heavy coat. But that's generally for painting full stop. Then you don't get the build-up on the edge. If you do get build-up on the edge, you can sand it down. You can take some 1200 sandpaper or 2000 sandpaper, wet or dry, on a little block and just flat out the edge. Okay. Because that edge is microscopic. And remember, you've built up paint. So you're not, so long as you don't sand vigorously, you're not going to go through the color because you've got an excess of color there. So you're just basically taking off that lip.
You go across the ridge or
No, you go along the ridge. Along the ridge. Yeah. Yeah. So if there was a ridge here, I would sand along the ridge. As soon as you start going across, you run the risk of peeling back. Okay. And again, it's just very gently, very subtle. You can always do a bit more. You can't take it away. You know. All right. Of course, on a gloss coat, you can flat it back, and you can use the gloss coat to also level out, to stop any ridges. Okay. The back end of this was also the lip and all the way down and round was also done with this tape. It's fantastic. Did I tell you how good this tape is? Okay. One other thing, a couple of other things to remember is if you're going to mask a straight line here, okay, make sure the surface is clean first. Just take a brush and just clean it off. Because every speck of dust that you leave there, if it ends up on the edge of the strip, it gives you a bump. If it ends up underneath the strip, you stand a chance of getting bleed underneath the mask. Yes. Okay, it sounds like a silly thing, but make sure it's clean before you mask. Okay. The other thing I'm going to touch on is more specific to car models than military models. But if you take this, for example, this BMW here, with the black and the blue. Now, obviously, the blue the blue is a pearl color, okay? It's a base coat paint. You spray that on first, then you're going to mask out and do the black, okay? Whenever it's a metallic or a pearl, you always need to put a very thin coat of clear on first. You should put a very thin coat of clear on first before you mask out for the black. The reason being, if you mask straight onto the metallic, and when you pull off that mask, you can pull off microscopic flecks of the metallic or the pearl. Then when you paint the black, so you've painted the black, then when you put the clear on top of that, you actually get a line where the refraction is slightly different, where the tape's pulled off that metallic. Okay, again, it's not hugely applicable to aircraft or even military vehicles. Metallic, especially the metallic pinks. But that's something to remember if you're painting a car in two-tone or anything else metallic. Even if you're doing an exhaust area or something like that, it's always a good idea to put on a thin coat of clear first, because your tape can pull off some of the pigment, some of the metallic pigment, and then you get a line effectively. Don't do the joint. That's the trick for masking for me. Is one piece. If you're starting there and you're ending there, it's one piece, because you'll never ever get that joint. If you take this tape, for example, okay? No, yeah. And you want to do an angled corner. Okay, what I do is I'll take the tape and I'll cut away and just leave a very small piece at the point. Okay, because when you bend that, you're now going to get a sharp edge. Okay, obviously it doesn't work on my finger. You see, then you don't get two levels. You've got one corner which has never been cut. So you've got one edge, but you have to cut away at the back because otherwise you get kink. So that's the way I do that with a straight stripe. Yeah. And then obviously, I mean, if you take off too much and it doesn't touch, you can mask off behind it. It's easy, but your edge is one piece. Yeah.
Armor thing, but I had ships the same thing. You've got
The other thing with masking as well is that, yes, you've got to try and stop as much bleed as possible, whatever it is. But inevitably, you're always going to get some bleed, somewhere. And the trick is then to fix the bleed. If you get some tiny little bit of bleed here or whatever, now you can literally take a knife and just. If it's a gloss coat. Yeah. The other thing is as well is that you don't necessarily always have to mask out everything. If you're gonna be, let's say I'm going to spray the front of this nose on this aircraft. I just want it black for whatever reason. Okay. You don't necessarily have to go and mask everything out. You can use card, you can use paper, just as a temporary mask. So you're spraying against it. I don't know if you've ever watched airbrushed artists. They mask out very little. They use a lot of shapes and things to spray against. Okay. And then of course there's freehand, where you don't use any masking at all. Okay. I think the idea is to use whatever works for you as well. I mean, I've seen guys use tinfoil as masking, because of the shape. So you've got it around. You've got tape on the edge, and then you use tinfoil around to mask out the thing. I've seen guys use plastic like cling wrap. Okay. The only downside to those is that your paint has to be dry and static. Yeah. Static's a whole different story. But that is a downside to it. And also, if your paint's not dry and if the paint's not dry and you mask it out and you put cling wrap around it, it can leave marks in your paint. Yeah. You speak from experience. Right. Any more questions, comments, suggestions? Excellent.